Hey guys, Joe here at JP Details and welcome back to the BMW 1 Series. Today you are joining me on the main event where I'll be washing the Beamer, decontaminating the Beamer and then compounding and refining the Beamer. We will be protecting the car with a ceramic coating, but that will be in a following episode to keep this one a bit shorter. If you do like my Beamer as much as I do, and if you want to see me and my employee clean and detail the Beamer, then please do subscribe to the channel so you can also see lots more videos on the Beamer and not just today's upload. I'm hunting down 100k subs and I'm not all that far off, so please do help me to get there sooner and hit subscribe now. The 135i is looking pretty sorry for itself and it is well overdue a good detail. Just like the wheels and arches, which have now been fully decontaminated, it's time to do a very similar process for the bodywork. An initial pre-rinse to begin to remove the bulk of dirt and grime for the entire exterior, and at this point there's no need to be incredibly thorough. Just give it all a quick rinse down to knock off the loose stuff. I'll apply a thick covering of a snow foam that's orange in colour, possibly easy detail, but I could be wrong. I simply saw it, grabbed it, filled my lance and fired it all over the car. It's come out decent, but I'm terribly sorry I can't recall which product it is. We'll let the snow foam dwell for maximum cling time because we all love a good cling on, and in the meantime I'll grab one of my new Workstuff detailing brushes to work the foam into the gaps and crevices. These brushes are turning out to be pretty decent, and I was in fact sent out around 20 brushes and various other things in total. Check the brushes out please guys, I'll put a link in the description below. The Easy Detail Go brush was a perfect fit for the twin tailpipes, and as it turns out, the 306 horsepower 3 litre rear wheel driven engine does seem to produce a wee bit of carbon. Nothing a bit of scrubbing and Surfex HD won't sort though, but geez, isn't that a good fit for the brush. With the gaps and crevices all detail brushed out, the snow foam was rinsed off the bodywork from the roof down. Feel free to be a bit more thorough at this point with the pressure washer, because by now the snow foam will have worked some magic on the more stubborn dirt and grime. This means that more dirt will be removed before making direct contact with the paint via a wash mitt compared to any other form of washing technique or method. Utilise the 2-bucket washing technique and wash the vehicle from the roof down. Try to reduce any swirling motions because it's not the done thing to do. Spend the time required to clean the vehicle meticulously because we are all detailers after all. We're both using the Sam's detailing wash mitts, so thank you Sam. In terms of the condition of the paint on the BMW, then I guess to the average person, after it's been given a good maintenance wash, it'd probably look superb. Under the studio lighting, however, it does clearly highlight that there is a huge improvement to be made. There are various defects dotted around the car, not forgetting the usual and blatantly obvious level of swirl marks. The car has had a couple of panels repainted since it left the factory, and on those panels you can clearly see a worse level of orange peel, which is mainly on the bonnet. Generally when the whole car is clean though, it looks anthracite under the lights. I'd say the whole car is in for one good transformation, but perhaps to appreciate it all, you'll have to appreciate the finer details, which I certainly do. We use those Sam's detailing wash mitts to get the 1 Series initially clean, and will then swap over to the secondary wash mitts to clean the lowest down areas. Rinse the vehicle when complete and will then be ready for decon stage 1. Due to it currently being a cloudy and relatively cold day, I'm going to apply the tar and glue remover to the whole left hand side of the car. It'll have a few seconds to begin breaking down the tar deposits before being attacked with a few microfiber towels. You certainly don't want to let this product dry on in the sun, so be sure to wipe over all panels thoroughly and repeat the process for a second time if your vehicle is heavily contaminated. You can go ahead and wipe down the paint, windows, plastics, but ideally stay away from the rubber seals, and you can then do the wheels and the lowest down areas of bodywork towards the end. Because I'm an OCD nutter, I'm going to give my Beamer 2 hits of the product with 2 separate wipe downs. This will ensure that there will be 0 traces of road tar when I'm finished. Work with the contours of the vehicle and make sure you don't miss any areas, and rinse when complete. I'll be keeping the plates on throughout this detail because the plates have only recently been fitted, and in order to take them off I would need to heat them up, which could result in them becoming slightly out of shape due to the heat. The plates are brand new and they are stuck on pretty well with some double-sided sticky tape. Decon stage 2 is the iron fallout stage, where we apply the iron fallout product to the entire exterior. Over the next 10 minutes or so, the product will chemically react with the iron contamination on the 1 Series external surfaces. I don't particularly want any rusty specks appearing, so I'll be sure to give the product its maximum dwelling time. Unfortunately, due to the car being black, we can't see much purple from the chemical colour change, which is a sign that perhaps this stage has been carried out on the car before. Rinse the product off the car after the dwelling. It does take a while to remove from all of the gaps and crevices. I'll apply a layer of snow foam shortly after to help with flushing out the iron fallout product, then I'll rinse again after another dwell. You can opt to give the door shuts and sills a good clean at this point with a pressure rinse, then a clean with APC and detailing brushes. You can time this with the final snow foam stage. My door shuts aren't overly dirty, as I did the DIY door shut detailing on its last maintenance wash around 7 or 8 weeks ago. We are using the Meguiar's clay bar and Meguiar's last touch detail spray, and we are going to gently run the clay bars over every centimetre of paintwork, windows, light and gloss black trim. These two products make for the perfect combo, and they will help us to remove all final bonded contamination. A vital must-do task to conclude the decontamination stages. Start with the top surfaces first, so the bonnet and the roof, and then begin working your way down. Don't do the lowest areas until last, because you won't want to clog your clay bar up early on. The joys of a clay bar do mean that you can alter the shape of it slightly to help you fit it into the tightest of areas, but only if you fancy spending the time. With Meguiar's last touch as your clay lube will mean that you can simply grab a drying towel and then proceed to dry the exterior. There is no need to rinse the vehicle for the 1,000,000th time. A quick switch around the unit to make way for the 1 Series to head on the lift. Let's take a look at the paint and what do we have left to contend with. Swirl marks, clay marring, deeper scratches dotted around, sanding marks in at least one area and a terrible finish on the bonnet. The paint is looking pretty tired from some shoddy washing technique and it certainly needs a good compound and polish. Take note of the contours of the vehicle to give you an idea about which machine will be better suited, but sometimes it is just a case of jumping in and getting started. There are noticeably a few more deeper scratches on the driver's door, which I'll hopefully be able to diminish down to a point where they'll be much less noticeable. The standard I'm going to achieve with this vehicle should leave you satisfied as a whole, regardless of a few deeper scratches and the odd dent in a couple of locations. I will see about getting some PDR work done, which could make a good video. The bonnet has been fitted in the last 6 or so months, I do believe, by the previous owner or possibly the owner before him. Either way, the bonnet is a good fit and it certainly isn't a bad paint job, but it clearly shows a lot of orange peel. I'm aiming to knock the orange peel back with a good compound and then refine for a show standard shine. The front bumper is another problem area and ideally it needs to be painted as it is flaking in a few places. I'll see what I can do with a BMW dealer purchase touch-up kit as there is a lot of stone chips. The 1 Series is finished in black sapphire metallic, but it's currently looking anthracite under the lighting in the unit. I doubt that this will be your typical hard BMW paint and it actually turned out to be more towards medium. No matter what the badge doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be that stereotypical type of paint hardness, just to let you know. Every vehicle is treated on a case-by-case basis, but what we do use on every single vehicle are these Rupes Bigfoot LHR 15 machines with FlexiPads microfiber compounding pads fitted. We'll be using the Rupes Green Medium compound, which did turn out to be the right choice because the paint on the bonnet is actually much harder than the original factory paintwork. I measured the depth of the paint on the bonnet purely out of curiosity because it isn't an original panel. It's measuring between 130 to 150 microns, which has given me confidence that I can pretty much go to town in a bid to remove the orange peel. I'll work the compound over the paint and go about my half of the bonnet in a very structured way. This will ensure 100% coverage of the panel and I won't randomly spend less time on certain areas. Work the crosshatch pattern if you can, and generally speaking I'll spread the product on 4 and then work in on 6. After a few control passes the product should begin to break down and at this point you should begin to see what's going on with the paint underneath. Use a good form of lighting that's angled towards the paint to help light up the defects. As I'm working the machine I'll be looking through the product residue and looking out for any defects that need to be removed or diminished. What you'll also want to figure out is how much contact time that this pad and the compound combination need with each area of paint to remove the desired level of defects. The difference with the Beamer today is that it's actually having a major paint correction, where the typical vehicle that we detail would either be going for a minor paint correction or even an enhancement. The difference with this being a major paint correction is that we'll now be chasing a realistic version of perfection. The way the bonnet was looking before I compounded most of my half did show a lot less swirl marks and random isolated deeper scratches than the rest of the factory paintwork, yet the bonnet still took a considerable amount of time to correct. Let's say the factory paintwork were to be harder than this bonnet, then me and Ryan will be in for one lengthy compounding session as the bonnet was pretty hard. In terms of how long you should spend machine polishing the paint or any given area like this quarter of the bonnet quite simply depends on the severity of defects that you are trying to remove. Do you want 60%, 70, 80, 90% defect removal, or are you the same as me up at around 97 to 98%? The bonnet has required a very good compounding session, primarily to remove numerous heavy straight line scratches. I'm thoroughly breaking the compound down to reduce all defects including the orange peel, which will level the clear coat down ever so slightly. Let's say a reduction of around 4 to 6 microns I would imagine. If you spent a bit of time in one given area to hit a IDS isolated deeper scratch, I'd expect to see anywhere from 8 to 15 microns reduced. A good bit of wet sanding, compounding and polishing for a IDS could see between 20 to 30 microns being removed. It can be quite substantial when done correctly. A paint depth gauge is invaluable considering they cost anywhere from £120 and up. It will be a cheap tool to initially purchase, and over the years it'll probably save you burning through the paint on more than one occasion. Not so bad on your own car, but a customer's car is a nightmare. The bonnet was given the initial compound and we then moved our attention to the roof. You'll want to apply the right amount of product to allow you to properly work your next section. Because we are now hitting a big open area like the roof, I will apply more product to the pad than I would if I were to be hitting the boot lid. The product that you apply to the pad is the product that you want to use on the paint, and you should want to get the most out of it. The only thing you should be brushing out of your microfiber pads is dried compound residue and clear coat residue, which is essentially a dust. If you're using brand new pads, then this setup is relatively low dust, but if you're using second-hand pads, then these will cause more dust, but this is the compromise of not using brand new pads every single time. This is my motor, hence the second-hand pads, which will be totally fine. Second-hand pads mean they've already been used and washed, then brought back in. There were a number of heavy marks on the roof, possibly caused by a cat, and I've simply had to do my best with some of them as they've proved to have gone past the point of being fully returned. In other good news, we can now see the benefits of a full decon and partial compound, giving us motivation to finish it all off. With the top parts of the car compounded, with our initial attempt, we'll lift the BMW to attend to the front, back and sides. The wheels are coming back off for them to be finished alongside the arches, and hopefully you've already watched the wheels off detail episode. By having the car at a much better working height helps to keep you working comfortably, which flows through yourself and into your work. The lift was quite an expense when initially purchased, but using it for the first time for a paint correction has certainly made the whole purchase seem incredibly worthwhile. Ignore the fact that the rear quarter has already been compounded. I'm going to show you the driver's door and the front arch for now, as the footage is much better. At times you should be able to see the level of swirling in the paint from the scan grip light, and as I work the panel, hopefully you'll be able to see a difference as I make some progress. I am aiming to achieve a good finish on this, so I am spending a bit of time working each section. Only do what's necessary, so newer cars should be a quicker process, but for some of these heavy scratches, I am finding they are distracting me from slaying the rest of the swirl marks. At all times when the pad is on the paint, it needs to be held level and flush with the surface. A bit of pressure is required to generate that contact patch, then you need to get focused and hit all areas. Work with the contours and always keep the machine flat to the paint. If it bogs down, you'll need to adjust ASAP, and the washer mod is highly recommended. The difference on left and right is massive, but this is the first of possibly 3 compounding hits and 2 refining hits with multiple passes in each hit. By the time we get to the end, the car will be looking like something else. I'll hit the other half of the door to get it matching with a change in camera position. If you want to tape off the door handles and the mirrors, then you can, to help protect against the backing plate of the machine polisher. Tape off all plastic and rubber trim, but there isn't much on the 1 Series as it's mainly all painted in gloss black. We'll lower the car down a tad so we can hit the A, B and C pillars more comfortably. I'll do what I can with the LHR 15 and then finish off with the Mini Bigfoot 75E Duetto. If only I could work that quick in real life, I'd be a true detailing god, but I'm already one of them anyway. The wing mirrors were given a good seeing to and they were flicked inwards to reach underneath. Be careful not to burn any edges, although I'm sure that goes without saying. We've got a few bush marks I imagine on the front wing, so let's see what we can do about these. It'll be all about spending the time required with the machine to get all areas best corrected. The wing came up top trumps from the initial compound stage, and I then found a few more bush marks on the front bumper. I'm not a fan of that chip, and the guy I bought it off had coloured it in with a black marker, and when I washed it for the first time I wiped the ink off and I saw it. I wasn't very happy. Rupes as a company didn't make one machine to machine polish a car, they made a range of machines to machine polish a car properly. I've now swapped over to the godsend tool of a Rupes Mini Bigfoot sporting a 3-inch microfiber compounding pad. There are a few curves going on with the Curvy 1 series, so what I'll have to do is to meticulously make sure that the pad keeps spinning at max RPM over every single section for a good amount of time. Break the compound residue down and brush the pads out frequently, buff when you are happy, and always inspect your results. Take note the setup on this machine compared to the setup on the LHR 15s, bearing in mind they both run the same type of pad and compound. The Mini Bigfoot doesn't cut anywhere near as quickly as the LHR 15. You will have to spend significantly longer with this smaller machine, and sometimes if it doesn't cut quickly enough, I'll up it to the Rupes Blue Heavy Course Compound. The fibres on these 3-inch flexi pads are longer than those on the 5-inch pads, which reduces their level of abrasion. I did get the Rupes Hybrid Nano out for a brief play, but due to not having any cutting pads for it, deemed it a useless tool. After initially using the Mini Bigfoot for the lowest sections, I'll quickly brush out one of the LHR 15s and hit the whole lower section for a second time with the bigger machine. I'm using the best of two machines here to achieve the best finish. The smaller machine is good, but sometimes it needs a wee boost from its bigger brother. Correcting the rear is going to be best achieved through using both machines. In regards to the bumper, then the LHR 15 will be fine, but for most of the boot lid it does seem as if the smaller machine is going to be better suited. I'm about to spend a decent amount of time on the smaller machine hitting the boot lid and the bumper lip, which already has a protective film fitted. I will show you up close because there are swirl marks underneath. It will need to come off at some point, polished, then a new one fitted. Everything with detailing is time consuming and it always requires patience. It also helps if you enjoy it and don't mind working hard. Each of the vehicles that I own religiously get detailed from top to bottom, and until that first big detail is finished, the car won't feel like it's truly mine. The sill on the front bumper was next to be compounded, and the Mini Bigfoot turned out to be a perfect fit. The whole bumper was given a relatively time-consuming compound using a FlexiPad's 3-inch microfiber cutting pad and the Rupes Green Medium compound. The next morning the car was dusted off and I then inspected the paint and marked multiple scratches that I believe need further work, and there were a lot. Considerably less on my side might I add, but this had to be expected. I thought it would be a great opportunity to have Ryan work alongside me on the BMW so I can further his training. The few types of defects that we are now left with on the paint are mainly what's known as isolated deeper scratches, or IDS. These can be dotted around and are basically heavier scratches in the paint. You'd also have stone chips, blemishes, sanding marks, swirl marks, oxidation, orange peel, bug etching and birdland, to name the most common types of defects. We've got a selection of heavier scratches and a scuff on the front bumper that all need to be diminished down further to satisfy my desire. I don't mind spending the extra time to do this to bring the vehicle to my required standard, so I will be happy. If you want your vehicle to be presented to a true show standard, then you'll never be as good as me unless you do this. I'll be continuing with myself in the footage in the next episode, which will be uploaded in a couple of days' time. I'll be talking you through the final process of the compounding stage in real life, then on to the last part of the series for refinement and protection. As always, thank you for watching, and if you haven't subscribed already, then please consider doing so. It will be much appreciated as we are approaching 100k really fast. I honestly can't wait to get one of those play buttons. It is going to be awesome. Feel free to give me a follow on Facebook and Instagram, just search JP Details, and I'll hopefully catch you in the next one.
What we're left with is scratches from the harder to reach areas. Simple. Yeah. Training days, the new people who do this, it's always this case of